If we exercise, the benefits of exercise are extraordinary. They get our bodies to adapt, to be able to do more things. They keep us healthier. They make us feel better. They keep our weight down. They keep our blood pressure down. Our chances for developing diabetes, heart attacks, and cancer all go down, and there are innumerable studies on that.
And they make our bones stronger as well.
Absolutely. So why don't we have a program of $50 billion? We give $1 billion to each state, or however Congress wants to divide it up. And we actually have programs where at every school, at every level, there's an hour of exercise every day. So we go back to exercising like when you and I were kids. And we also have some facilities that are in every major city where people are encouraged to exercise and are reimbursed, okay, by having lower health care costs if their weight's down and they're fitter.
Boy, that's a great idea.
So exercise could do a lot.
Because people do need motivation.
Sure. Then you look at nutrition. You could do 3 simple little things like we're doing here in Walnut Creek. You could cut back on the high fructose corn syrup, on the trans fats. You can eliminate those and put enough fiber in food.
And how about taxing junk food?
Absolutely. I mean, let's encourage people to eat the right foods. Let's get our restaurants and cities and hospitals and schools to all serve healthy food by giving them reimbursements, okay, for doing so, and taxing the junk food people and taxing anybody who sells that kind of food that we know is causing all these health care problems, just like with tobacco.
And maybe some way to encourage them to grow organic food, too.
Absolutely. I mean, all these things could come in due time, but a little at a time, if we start with a sensible eating program, tax junk food, give reimbursements and some kind of support for people who are making healthy food, America's going to eat healthier. It will be healthier.
Yeah, we need to make it so that it's more affordable for people to eat healthy.
Well, it costs a lot more not to, but it could cost a lot less if we subsidized, okay, people who are growing good food, so the prices would be lower, and tax people who are serving the junk food. All right, then we can
in the long run, too, it's worth it financially because then you're healthier and you don't have all the medical expenses for eating junk food.
We want to do better than we did with the tobacco industry. I mean, in that case, I mean, we tax them $150 billion a year. And you'd think that's an awful lot of money for them to pay in tax, and it indeed is. But do you know how many dollars are spent on the effects of tobacco by the medical industry or by people who are sick? $350 billion. They still owe us $200 billion.
Oh my goodness.
And that's not happening. So we've got to tax things effectively.
So what about comparative research with complementary alternative medicine and with Western medicine?
Absolutely. What we want to do is look at, do natural therapies work? Do vitamins and minerals and nutrients and supplements? Does acupuncture work? Does chiropractic work? Does homeopathy work? And compare that head to head with the pharmaceutical industry and do it in a way that's fair.
Yeah, like who would fund this? Because so far most of the scientific studies are funded by the pharmaceutical companies.
Well, twice as many as the National Institutes of Health, and you can't trust the medical research. We've talked about that in the previous chapters. So we need a new system that's regulated by an independent group of people that are not influenced by big pharma or by the research industry or by anybody else, so that we can get information that's accurate.
So we need to live with a healthy lifestyle before intervention. We need to think about alternatives before we think about like painkillers and things like that. Mm-hmm. And we need to support prevention.
Mm-hmm. We look at direct-to-consumer ads too. We want to get rid of them. I mean, there are only 2 countries that will allow.
Us and New Zealand, and nobody else allows it. Why do we allow it?
Well, it's the same thing. It's the conflict of interest. It's because Big Pharma has the impact it does with Congress that they allowed it to happen. You don't see that in other countries because they don't have that same invested collusion that we do in this country. So if we use direct-to-consumer ads in a way where we encourage diet and exercise, wouldn't that make a lot more sense?
Well, also about complementary alternative medicine. Right now, it seems like really the only people that can afford it are the affluent.
That's right.
And it's not really fair. And it would be great if all healthcare practitioners that are licensed could be included in insurance.
Absolutely. The problem that we have is exactly what you said, and it's because we don't have medical freedom in this country. We do not have anything in the Constitution of the United States that guarantees that we have the right to decide what our health care is going to be like. We don't have that right.
Especially when it comes to like cancer therapies, right? Because
when it comes to all therapies,
the only things that are legal for cancer, for example, in California, are surgery and chemotherapy and radiation. And if you try to do something alternative, it's a crime. And they can even take your children away from you and force the treatment on your children.
Well, there's certainly no medical freedom, and that's the extreme situation of what can happen. But Americans deserve the right to choose the therapies they want. I mean, we're not stupid people. We know how to make up our own minds about what we want. And why shouldn't we have the right to do that? It's a very unlevel playing field when you have the physicians, who are the only ones for the most part that are reimbursed for services. And you have the Chinese medicine and Ayurveda people and Native American people, the chiropractors, the body workers, a lot of people who do a lot of very important different kinds of healthcare disciplines don't get reimbursed hardly at all. So who can afford that kind of service? And while that's not fair to the practitioners, it's worse to you, to the middle person in the U.S., because they can't afford to do that. You can't afford to go out and spend $5,000 or $10,000 a year on services that are outside the mainstream if you need to. And so it's literally unavailable. So we need legislation that will change that to give us the right to choose the care we want.
Well, some of this CAM, we call it, for complementary alternative medicine, some of the education actually is starting up. I mean, we have the American Holistic Nurses Association, we've got Andrew Weil and his school, and some of the medical schools now are starting. And there are some clinics that are integrative that are popping up here and there.
We're seeing a definite shift. There's no question about that. There's a great deal of interest. The public wants it. Medical students want it. And some doctors are getting curious about what's possible to use outside of what they're taught in medical school. But it's still not ingrained. It's still not something that's that common. A lot of medical schools are offering elective courses in complementary and alternative therapies, but in actuality, the meat of their programs is 98%. Doing the same old thing we've always done.
Well, they know that the public is demanding it, so they're trying to look good, I guess, to the public, that they're trying and that they're offering some of this.
They're trying to look complete. They're trying to look like they offer things that are more than they are, so that they're looking bigger than they are. But in actuality, when you talk to the doctors and you talk to the administrators, they're not so geared to want to do that. And it's not just because they want to favor medicine because that's what they do. It's because of the economics of how it's put together. There's still no reimbursement for services whether you offer them or not. So the playing field has to shift. Big Pharma has to go along with it. And there's a lot of money there. Big Pharma has far too much control over how healthcare is practiced in this country.
Well, the other thing is that we need major FDA reform. The FDA has shown us that they're pretty corrupt.
They talk about it themselves. They put it out there and say, we know we're doing things like that. And it's not everybody in the FDA that's doing it. One part of the FDA is blowing the whistle on another part. And what we're seeing is all kinds of conflict of interest that you can go right back to who? Big Pharma. It's because their dollars speak loudly. Congress doesn't give the FDA enough money or authority to be able to really regulate Big Pharma's industry, because it would cut down on the amount of sales that they would have. They would actually have to practice what we call safe medicine. And that